My family tried to steal my life, so I took theirs apart legally. You ever look around a house, the same walls that held your childhood memories, that wrapped around birthday candles, school night fights, and Christmas mornings, and suddenly feel like an intruder? That was me, Cara Ross, 30 years old, keys jangling in one hand, a tired takeout bag in the other, staring at the locked front door of my parents' house. Correction, my house. I bought it 2 years ago when mom and dad fell behind on mortgage payments, saved it from foreclosure, paid off the balance, put the deed in my name. Legally and technically, it was mine, but the locks apparently didn't care about that, because tonight they had changed them. All because I got home at 11:43 p.m. The rule, as they so politely reminded me last week, was no returns after 10:30. It's disrespectful. I thought they were joking. I laughed. My mom didn't. And now, here I was. Outside, cold, alone. I knocked. Softly at first, then louder. Lights flicked on upstairs. The blinds shifted. And then I heard it. The deadbolt sliding into place again. Like a punctuation mark on the kind of sentence that ruins your night. I ended up sleeping in my car that night. Not because I didn't have other places I could go. I could have called friends. I could have gone to a hotel. But I was too humiliated to explain the situation to anyone. Who gets locked out of their own house by their parents because they missed some made-up curfew? Who gets told by their own mother that a real daughter wouldn't come home smelling like bars and bad decisions? I sat there in the driver's seat, takeout forgotten, tears cooling on my cheeks, and one thought circling over and over again in my mind. I saved this house for them, and this is how they thank me. Let me back up for a second. I'd moved back home 2 years ago when my dad had a minor stroke, and my mom, ever the drama queen, insisted she couldn't handle things alone. The house was already in default, and they didn't want to sell it. Too many sentimental memories, she had said. So I offered to help. I had a decent job in IT with a remote setup, savings in the bank, and nowhere I needed to be. I bought the house out of foreclosure under my name, paid the taxes, renovated the busted upstairs plumbing, rewired the ancient fuse box. In return, I asked for one thing: respect. Just a little. Not gratitude, not reverence. Just not being treated like a child in a grown woman's body. But what I got was curfews and rules about what time I could use the washing machine, and snide remarks every time I had a friend, male or female, over for coffee. It was like I'd walked into a sitcom, except no one was laughing, and the punchline always made me feel like I was 16 again. The next morning, I knocked again. Bright and early, in yesterday's clothes, face puffy from a terrible night of sleep. My mom opened the door a crack. Her expression? Smug. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, voice all sugar and salt. "Cut the crap," I said. "Why did you change the locks?" She shrugged. "You broke the rules. You need consequences. If you're living under our roof, it's our house, Cara." I stared at her. Really looked. Then I laughed just once. Bitter. "It's my house, Mom. I have the deed. My name. My money." Her smile faltered. My dad appeared behind her, rubbing his temples. My brother Kyle stood in the hall, arms crossed like a mediator who didn't want to be there. "Let's all just calm down," Dad said. "No," I snapped. "I'm done calming down." I left without saying another word. But I wasn't defeated. I was done playing the polite game. If they wanted to act like I was a guest in their fantasy of power and control, I'd show them exactly who owned what. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. And then I called a locksmith. By the next day, they had 72 hours to vacate or face formal eviction. I didn't feel guilty. I felt
awake. If you're not following our channel, you might never see it again. But if you're subscribed and use the bell, congratulations. You'll always have access to the most interesting stories whenever you want to watch and listen.
I'd never handed someone an eviction notice before. Honestly, I didn't even know how to say the words out loud. But the lawyer I spoke to didn't hesitate. Cara, you're the legal owner. If they're refusing to comply and treating you like a tenant, or worse, an unwelcome guest, you're within your rights to evict. File it, serve it, be calm, and document everything. So I did exactly that. The paperwork was ready in 48 hours. I had the sheriff's office on speed dial. Not because I wanted to involve them, I didn't, but because I knew my parents would try to spin this as elder abuse or ungrateful daughter hysteria. They were dramatic like that. Especially my mom, Eleanor Ross. I also brought 2 friends with me, Tasha and Mike, both law students. They didn't need to say anything, just stand there. Witnesses. Calm energy, so I wouldn't spiral. We pulled up to the house on a Tuesday morning. It was quiet, almost peaceful, if you ignored the fact that my hands were shaking around the envelope. I rang the bell. My mom answered in silk robe like she had been expecting paparazzi. "What's this?" she said, blinking at the paper in my hand like I was offering her a dirty diaper. "Notice to vacate." My voice cracked on the last word, but I stood firm. She laughed, not like she was amused, like she thought I was kidding. "You can't be serious." "I am. This is a family home," she snapped. "No," I said slowly. "It was. Now it's a legal property with my name on the deed. You broke the locks, refused to give me access, and threw me out for missing your fake curfew. That's not family. That's control." Behind her, my dad appeared. His eyes were already red-rimmed. I half expected a monologue about how I was betraying them. Instead, he just said, "Cara, let's talk about this." I nodded. "We can. After you read that notice, you have 3 days." And the next 3 days were chaos. My mom called everyone in our extended family. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were texting me with things like, "Your mom's really hurt, Cara. I didn't think you'd stoop this low. They gave you life, and this is how you repay them?" My brother Kyle posted a passive-aggressive Facebook status. Some people forget where they came from once they get a taste of power. Cute. I stayed silent, publicly. But privately, I documented everything. Screenshots, phone calls, voicemails, even the weird gifts that started showing up, like a Forgive Your Parents devotional left anonymously on my porch. And when day 3 came, I brought the sheriff. This time, when we rang the bell, my mom didn't answer in silk. She answered in fury. "This is disgusting," she said, glaring at the officer beside me. The sheriff was calm, polite. "Ma'am, you've been served. We're here to escort you off the property if needed." "You're siding with her?" my dad snapped. "She's the owner," the officer said simply. "Legally." My parents were stunned, truly stunned. They never thought I'd do it, never thought I'd stop playing the good daughter. But I wasn't playing anymore. They packed over the next 48 hours, loudly, with comments like, "We always knew you'd throw us away," and "This is what happens when daughters don't respect their parents anymore." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just watched. And when they finally pulled out of the driveway in Dad's old Buick, I felt empty. Not victorious, not angry, just hollowed out. Because I had won. But I'd lost something too. Maybe it was the illusion that we were ever a normal family, or maybe just the belief that love could be earned by being agreeable. Either way, I stood alone in that quiet house and realized this was just the beginning. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. If I thought they'd move out quietly and lick their wounds somewhere safe and distant, I was naive. The retaliation started small. A week after they left, I came home from work to find someone had poured syrup into my mailbox. Sticky, rotten, ruined every letter. I didn't report it at first, just sighed, cleaned it out, and chalked it up to a weird prank. Then my credit score dropped overnight, from excellent to fair. Turns out, someone had applied for 3 store credit cards in my name and missed the first payments. The addresses were off by just a few numbers, enough to throw off the verification, not enough for a red flag. I froze my credit, filed fraud reports, set up alerts. Still, my stomach sank when I realized this wasn't random. This was personal, and it was just beginning. The next week, I got a call from my boss. "Hey, Cara, everything okay at home?" "Yeah, why?" "Well," he hesitated. "We've been getting some odd emails. Accusations, nothing serious, but slander. About your mental health history, some incident from your college days. They're unsigned, obviously fake, but we need to loop HR in just to protect you." I didn't have to guess who sent them. My mom had kept a folder of my old therapy records. Nothing scandalous, just high school counseling sessions after a rough breakup, but enough in the wrong hands to paint a narrative. She was building one. A slow, deliberate character assassination. One suggestion at a time. I called my brother Kyle. Thought maybe he'd talk some sense into her. Thought maybe for once he'd take my side. "You seriously think Mom's doing this?" he said, voice flat. "Yes, Kyle, they've been harassing me, vandalizing my stuff, sending fake emails. Maybe if you hadn't kicked them out like criminals, they wouldn't be so angry." I swallowed. "They locked me out of my own house. And maybe you could have handled that without lawyers and cops." There it was. The same spineless neutrality he'd always used to avoid conflict. "Don't call me again," I said. "Not until you remember who paid for the roof over your head for the last 2 years." Then I hung up and blocked his number. 3 days later, my tires were slashed. Not all 4, just 2. Subtle sabotage. I had surveillance cameras installed the next day, sent footage to the police. They opened a harassment case, but told me it'd be hard to prove anything unless I caught them in the act. "Document. Document everything," the officer said. "Harassment like this escalates, and usually ends in court." I started carrying pepper spray, stopped walking alone at night, cut contact with anyone who still talked to my parents, which unfortunately included 2 cousins, my old youth group leader, and the woman who did my hair. They were painting me as the villain, the ungrateful daughter who evicted her poor parents, the unstable woman who snapped. No one was talking about the locks, the curfews, the years I supported them while being treated like an inconvenience. It was my word against theirs, and they were louder. I finally broke down one night. Sat on the floor of my bathroom, hands shaking, reading a fake Yelp review my mom had posted under an alias. "This woman is emotionally unstable, not safe to work with, avoid her at all costs." She wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to erase me. That's when I decided. No more defense. It was time to go on the offensive. I filed the paperwork the next morning. 2 restraining orders. One for Eleanor Ross, one for Philip Ross. The court clerk didn't even blink when I described the pattern of behavior. Vandalism, defamation, financial fraud, harassment. She'd seen it before. You'd be surprised how often parents go after their kids when money or property's involved. It always looks like love until it gets ugly. She handed me the copies with a warning. Don't serve them yourself. I didn't plan to. Later that week, I got a DM from my cousin Jamie. She was always the quiet one, kept out of drama, kept to herself. "Hey, Cara, I think you need to know something. I didn't want to get involved, but your mom showed up at Aunt Brenda's. She said you were sick and needed intervention. She's planning to file for conservatorship." I froze. Conservatorship. My heart dropped into my stomach. That wasn't just manipulation.
That was a legal maneuver to take back control over me, my finances, my house, my life. I called my lawyer immediately. We reviewed documents, started preparing a counter strategy, bank statements, therapy records, character witnesses, employment history, everything we'd need to disprove the mental incompetence narrative they were clearly building. My lawyer looked grim. This isn't just retaliation. This was planned, Cara. They've probably been talking to someone, an advisor, maybe even a lawyer. I dug into it. And what I found made me sick. 2 months before the lockout, 2 months, my mom had reached out to a legal firm in St. Paul that specialized in elder affairs and family conservatorship. She had sealed out forms, named herself and my father as co-conservators over me. She claimed I had manic tendencies and was financially reckless. She wrote that I was unfit to manage household responsibilities and prone to emotional instability. She described me like a patient,
Not a person. Not her daughter. I confronted her. I had to. Through my lawyer, of course. Not a person. Not her daughter. I confronted her. I had to. Through my lawyer, of course. We arranged a deposition. She showed up in pearls and smugness, pretending like this was just a misunderstanding. I was just exploring my options, she said. Cara's been under a lot of stress. We all have. Sometimes children lash out. My lawyer asked her point blank, "Did you intend to seize legal control of your daughter's finances?" She smiled, "Only if necessary." I stared at her through the glass divider and saw the woman I used to admire, now just a puppet master who couldn't stand the idea of not pulling my strings. The judge issued temporary protective orders, restrained contact, no unsupervised approaches, no property entry, no communication through third parties. My mom protested. My dad sighed. My brother never showed. That night, I sat in the silence of my living room. The house was still, but I wasn't. I was a volcano learning to control its lava. This wasn't just about who paid for what. It was about power, control, and the cost of reclaiming your life when the people who raised you won't let go. But I wasn't going to let them win. They wanted a court battle? They'd get one. And this time, I'd come armed. It started with the flowers, a dozen long-stemmed red roses left on my porch. No note, no tag. Just a glass vase and a faint, sour smell, like they'd been left in the heat too long. Sweet at first glance, creepy if you knew the history. Red roses were my mom's favorite, not mine. I always preferred wildflowers. She used to say roses were what real women wanted, like it was a personality test. She gave them to me on my 16th birthday, after a huge fight, as an apology with thorns. So seeing them now felt like a warning. That night, my front window shattered. I was brushing my teeth when it happened, a loud, guttural crack, like something had been hurled with force. I ran downstairs and found glass everywhere, a rock the size of a grapefruit lying in the middle of the floor. No note this time either, but I didn't need one. The message was clear. You're not safe here. The cops came, took a report, filed it as vandalism. They asked if I had enemies. Just my parents, I said. The officer blinked. I gave him the full backstory. He didn't laugh. He nodded and said, "You'd be surprised how often family feuds go sideways." After that, the attacks turned digital. Fake social media profiles started posting about me. One accused me of abusing my elderly parents. Another claimed I'd stolen the house by forging documents. A third said I was fired for mental instability. Complete fiction. Each one linked to a fake blog titled "Daughter of Deception, the Real Cara Ross." It was detailed, personal, creepy. They used childhood photos, mentioned my college, referenced private therapy sessions, even quoted things I'd said or almost said from private texts. This wasn't just harassment.
It was obsession. That's when I stopped sleeping. I started carrying a baseball bat from room to room. I had alarms installed, cameras, floodlights. I changed my phone number and locked down every account with two-step authentication. Still, I felt haunted. And not by ghosts, by memories. Like how my mom used to braid my hair while humming off-key. How my dad used to drive 2 hours to pick me up from college when my car broke down. How Kyle used to give me his dessert without asking. None of it matched the people attacking me now, which meant one of two things. They'd always been this way, or love, when it turns to control, rots into something unrecognizable. Then came the lawyer's call. We're filing the lawsuit. Slander, fraud, defamation, identity theft. You have enough. I nodded, staring at the burned roses I'd left in a bowl as a reminder. Do it, I said. All of it. Because they weren't going to stop until someone made them, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be the daughter who kept shrinking to fit their version of respectful. The court date was set. Subpoenas were issued. Witnesses were called. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. Not peace, but something sharper. More purposeful. I was no longer just defending myself. I was making sure no one else got steamrolled by the people who swore they loved them. The day before court, I got one last email. From Kyle. It read, "You could have handled this privately. You didn't have to destroy the family. Hope you're proud." I didn't respond. Because here's the thing no one tells you about drawing boundaries. The people who benefited from you having none, they will always call you the villain. Let them.
Courtrooms don't look like they do in movies. They're colder, slower, less dramatic. But the tension? Oh, it's real. You can taste it. The morning of the hearing, I wore a navy suit, hair pinned back, no makeup beyond mascara and concealer, not to look tough, just to look like me, calm, unshaken. Across the aisle, my parents sat side by side. My mother's mouth was tight, her jaw locked. My dad didn't look at me once. Kyle wasn't there. They'd brought their own lawyer, some guy in a beige suit who looked like he thought this would be easy. He was wrong. My lawyer started with the timeline. How I paid off the mortgage, took legal ownership, documented the curfews, the harassment, the vandalism, the defamation. She showed the receipts, screenshots of text messages, fake social media posts, the creepy blog, surveillance footage of my mom trespassing, and then she dropped the bomb. The conservatorship paperwork, filled out months before the eviction. It landed like a punch in the room. The judge squinted. Your parents attempted to take legal guardianship over a financially stable, employed, mentally sound adult? My lawyer nodded. Without her knowledge, using false statements. The courtroom was silent. Then came my mom's testimony. Tears, sniffles. We were worried about her. She's always been emotional. Ever since high school. She tried to spin it into concern, but when the judge asked why she changed the locks on a house she didn't own and then defamed her daughter online, the answers dried up. My father fumbled through excuses, said things like, "We just wanted our home back," and "She changed after college." No remorse, just disappointment that I wouldn't play along. In the end, the judge didn't take long. He ruled in my favor. They were ordered to cease all communication, remove all defamatory content online, pay damages for slander and credit fraud, and most important, stay 100 feet away from my property at all times. It was over. But not really. Because no judge can give you back your childhood or the illusion that your parents love you in ways that don't come with strings. After the verdict, I walked outside and sat on the courthouse steps. Sunlight on my face, wind in my hair. I cried. Not because I lost anything, because I finally let go.
of trying to be the daughter they wanted, of hoping they'd ever change, of shrinking. 6 months later, my house was mine again. Truly mine. I repainted the living room, got new furniture, held small dinners with people who loved me without conditions. I even adopted a rescue dog named her Pepper. She barks at the door every time someone approaches, a guardian in fur. I smile more now, not because everything is fixed, but because I fixed what I could. People ask sometimes, mostly strangers online, if I regret it, if I miss them, if it ever feels lonely to win at the cost of family. Here's what I say. Family isn't blood, it's behavior. And if standing up for yourself makes you the villain in someone else's story, write your own. The ending will be better. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? What city and country? And have you or someone you know ever been through something like this?